Well, hello. So today I am going to make, actually, I'm going to do two cooking classes for you guys today, but this one I just thought I'm going to make it, I'm going to share it with you. So, as I mentioned, it's strawberry season and the fresh strawberries are here. So, tonight we want to have strawberry shortcake for dinner. So, I'm making shortcake biscuits. Now, some of you may be familiar with this, others may not, but I have two cookbooks that I use quite a lot. One is a collection of my own recipes that my mom started for me when I left to go to university, and all handwritten recipes. It's completely falling apart. Both covers are gone. There's really just a ring binder and a bunch of loose pages, and it's kept in a Ziploc bag. And the other recipe, or the other cookbook that I have that I use a lot, is this one. It's called the Purity Cookbook from Purity Flowers. It's old school. My mom had it and she used it a lot. And it's got a lot of great little recipes, but it is also disintegrating. So there are certain things that I make, and one of them is these shortcake biscuits. And so I have to run through the loose pages because, hot cross buns are on. Hot cross buns are on here. You can tell the things I use because the pages have more food on them. But I know I wrap it up, make it fast. Shortcake biscuits is one of them, and the index for this cookbook is a bit of a suggestion. So luckily the recipes I use the most are on the pages that are falling apart, so I have access to them. So, shortcake biscuits. The biscuits that I make are not your traditional biscuits. The biscuits that I make are really light and really wonderful. And I didn't choose these because of how good they are. I chose them because they're easy. Because if you've been watching me for a bit, you might realize that I'm a bit of a lazy chef, but I find workarounds that make things really good. So I never sacrifice the flavor, the ingredients, the integrity, whatever, but I do find quick methods. So these ones are quick and easy, and they're really good. And yeah, they're just super easy to make. So this is anytime I'm doing pastry or biscuits, it always goes in this bowl. I've got actually two of them. They used to have a little rubber thing on the bottom, but long gone. These were on mountains. So these are, what kind of Frigo seal? These are at least 50 years old. Okay, so we start with 2 cups of flour. 1, 2. Now, the interesting thing about this, I would very much say, and I've maintained this all my life, that you have to have a certain touch to make really good pastry and biscuits. And this recipe, I believe, is foolproof, that you don't have to have that touch, but you do have to listen to how it all comes together. I'll explain as I go. So, 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Whoops, where am I going with that? 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder. My mama always told me, my mom was a very good baker, and I'm a pretty good baker too. My mama always told me, always heap the baking powder. So, 1, 2, 3, and don't heap the baking soda. That has to be absolutely laser measured, laser leveled. 3.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Baking powder, not baking soda. 1 teaspoon of salt. Level that bugger off too. And to this, we will add, give that a little bit of a stir, because we are going to add 1/2 cup of shortening. Ding dong, ding dong, boo. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm doing this is because it is summer and the strawberries are in season, which means that when you see me step away from the counter, you're also going to notice I'm in shorts. I'm making this for us. It's for Billy and I for dinner. So, there. Okay, half a cup of butter. Found this on that, the site that you go on and you order stuff that I don't endorse, but I really like, which is called Amazon. It was really cheap. It was like $14 or something, and I love it because it's great to have a scale. So half a cup is 4 ounces of butter. That's not even nearly 4 ounces. I should know that. Whoop, 4.48. Take a piece off that. Look at that. Bingo, bango, bongo. So there's my 4 ounces of butter. The butter has to be cold because we're going to cut it into the flour mixture using a pastry blender, or 2 forks or 2 knives, whatever you have the most patience for. Me is not rewrapping the butter. That is not where my patience lies. Okay, turn that off. You can do a tare and everything, which is great because then you can use, you've got something to put it in. If you don't know what a tare is, I assume you do, but I'll tell you when, because it's always when you assume people know stuff that they don't. So a tare means that you're doing a weight, but you're putting it back to 0 when there's something else on the scale. So like if I put a bowl on that scale, I do a tare, it puts it back to 0 with the bowl on it. So I can measure flour right into a bowl and not have the measurement mixed up. So hopefully I explained that right. I'm just cutting the butter up because it makes it a little bit smaller than having one big huge chunk. I have my handy dandy pastry blender. Da, da, da. I got a networking call with somebody, not networking, but he does a podcast and interviews school community owners. So I'm supposed to have a call with him, but he canceled yesterday. And then today he said he's got to move it 15 minutes. So it may very well be that Billy's going to take these out of the oven, but I don't think so because, 425 for 14, 16 minutes. I got shorts on. I only had it on 400 because I couldn't remember and I knew I would adjust it later. So I'm just using the pastry blender to mix the cold butter up to make small chunks. Ideally, you don't want them to be any bigger than a pea and, maybe even a little smaller than that. But the idea is to have it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like sand. It can have a few little chunks, but you want it to be mostly small bits. Okay. Strawberry season. Riley is in Ottawa. Riley's my oldest, for those of you who don't know. She is in Ottawa training for a bit. Is there some sort of shootout at the OK Corral? There wasn't. It was an issue with coaching. And she's not in this community, so I can tell you that. Anyway, so she decided to go to Ottawa for a bit. So she's missing the first strawberries. I sent her pictures. She's like, Mom, I want those. I said, well, then come home. She'll be home in a couple days. All right. So the next thing is 1 cup of milk. I take some artistic liberties here. You won't be surprised to hear. So instead of just 1 cup, so what does it say? Blah, 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 shortening. And it calls for shortening. I use butter. 1 cup of milk. So what I do is I add an egg because I think an egg makes it lovely. But you don't want to add a milk plus an egg, but I will go a little overbit on the milk. Shoot, I forgot to pause that for a sec. Okay, I had to put pause there for a sec because I forgot to bring the milk up from the basement. Okay, so in a perfect world, you would take that recipe that calls for 1 milk, put the egg in, and then fill the measuring cup up to 1 cup. But, I think I said this earlier. If I didn't, I've said it before in other places. The trick to having light and fluffy dough for pastry and biscuits is to stir and handle as little as possible. And so one trick that I've discovered over the years to keep everything super tender is to add a little bit of extra liquid. So I'm just going to put another bloop. Who's your mama? Because if there's just barely enough liquid, then sometimes you have to overstir to combine all the dry ingredients with the wet. Then you get handling it too much. So if I just put a little bit of extra liquid in, it makes the dough a little wet, but it doesn't need to be stirred as much. So I'm going to dump the whole thing in. My 1 egg, my 1 cup of milk and a dribble. Stir it with a fork. And it's coming together beautifully. And you can see it's a pretty wet dough. So in terms of biscuits, let me just see what this recipe says. Turn dough on lightly floured surface, knead 8 to 10 minutes, roll or pat it 3/4 of it. I've never, ever, and I've been making this dough for years, been able to put this on a surface and have anything but a gooey mess. So I've adapted and improvised over the years, and now I just drop it by the spoon. So put this in the cup now. Got my cookie sheet with my silk hat on it. One more stir. All right. And then, instead of rolling and cutting, which is where it comes in, I say it's quite easy, is I just put it by big blobs on the sheet. And that's how I form my biscuits. And they do flatten out quite a bit, more than I'd like normally, but I've learned to live with it because they are really good. They're very, very light and fluffy and dead simple to make. As you can see, this video looks like it's about 10 minutes long now, and I farted around a little bit, so you know, if I hadn't been talking and demonstrating, it probably would have taken me about 7 minutes to make this. So I think that that's a fairly decent time frame to work with for a really nice biscuit. And you know what? It's a shame, but every time I make these, something happens. One comes out of the oven, gets a little butter slathered on it, and I eat it without the strawberries. I do so love fresh, almost anything out of the oven. All right. One in the middle here, I'll probably regret that, but that's what it is. I refuse to get a second cookie sheet out because I just feel like that's not necessary. This is going to make 9, which is plenty. I'll have to be pawning some of these off on other people. Julia seems to mind when I pawn my baking off on him. But Billy and I make stuff because he has diabetes, right? He can't be eating a lot of the sugary stuff or the carb-heavy stuff. And so I'll make something for us, and then, you know, we'll have it, you know, if it's cookies, we'll have a couple cookies, and then we just pack them up as we take them to work, because it satisfies our desire to have the cookies, but we're not eating the whole thing. So, that's it. Done like dinner. I'm going to put them in the oven. I'm going to pause again, and I'll be back. Ready for the big reveal. It has been about 13 minutes, and they look fabuloso, so I'm going to put them out. Best facial. There you go. And there you have it. Biscuits that are fresh out of the oven. And yeah, I know I was a little loosey-goosey when I put them on the tray. I was talking too much, but they're wonderful. I just use a spatula. And I will loosen them. This guy, he's just, I'll show you what this one looks like. They are so beautiful and light and fluffy on the inside. So that is the story. Between 12 and 15 minutes, but you can tell when they're golden like this, they're all done. Take them out, let them cool, and enjoy the